This association I've been very lucky to and privileged to lead for the last 5 years. Your Excellency, here are gathered over 200 judges from 40 countries, and you can see all the flags of the countries represented on the right. We also have scholars and experts in the field of refugee and migration law. Here are represented our 4 chapters, the Africa chapter, the Asia Pacific chapter, Europe, and the Americas. And it would be remiss of me, Your Excellency, not to thank your government because of the funding that we received to organize this conference. Particularly, I would like to thank the Chief Justice, the Registrar of the Supreme Court, her directors, Director of Budget, Director of ICT, Director of Finance, Director of Communication, and their teams for organizing such a wonderful conference. And I'm sure myself, by the end of the week, we shall be most gratified with the effort put here. Let me also thank our partners, UNHCR, led by Dr. Mamadou Balde, who's here, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, led by Dr. Stephanie Rothenberg, IDLO, led by Teresa Mugaza, Equality Now, led by Judy Gitau, the Embassy of Belgium, led by Ambassador Peter Madins, the Refugee Consortium of Kenya, represented by Catherine Joroge, and all our partners who made this conference a reality. Your Excellency, I did promise upstairs that my speech will only be very simple. It is to thank you and to welcome you and to welcome participants. With those very few remarks, I thank you very much for your kind attention. Karibuni Kenya, welcome to Kenya. Have a good conference. Thank you.
That is a perfect example of kiss it, keep it short and simple. Next, Your Excellency, allow me to invite Dr. Mamadou Dian Balde, Regional Director of Eastern and Southern Africa, United Nations, High Commissioner for Rights and Refugees, to make his remarks. A clap for him, please. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Martha Koome, Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, Justice Isaac Lenaola, President of the International Association of Refugees and Migrant Judges, and my brother and friend, Chief Justices, Chief Judges, judges, lawyers, and practitioners, ladies and gentlemen, habari za asubuhi. Good morning. I am very honored to address this distinguished gathering of policymakers and shapers of legal mind and practitioners who stand at the front lines of justice for people who have been forced to flee their homes for no reasons beyond their personal choices, and for migrants. Let me begin, Your Excellency, by expressing UN High Commissioner Filippo Grandi, your friend who was here in March for the launch of the Shirika Plan, and indeed on behalf of the entire UNHCR, for really we show our gratitude to the government of Kenya for hosting this important event, and for the International Association for its unwavering commitment to strengthening the rule of law for refugees and migration systems globally. In the countries of Eastern and Southern Africa, we are no strangers to the complexities of forced displacement and human mobility. The region hosts over 6.3 million refugees and asylum seekers, or 17% of the world's refugees and asylum seekers registered, and millions more are internally displaced. These numbers reflect the scale of displacement, but also the resilience of host communities and the enduring relevance of international and regional protection framework. Yet, we must also acknowledge the pressure on national government, local authorities, and on generous host communities. Conflict, climate change, economic instability, and government challenges continue to drive displacement. At the same time, the integrity of refugee and migration systems is increasingly tested by misinformation, procedural abuses, and gaps in legal framework. The theme of this year's conference could not be more relevant. Integrity is not merely a technical or legal concept, it is the bedrock of trust. It is what allows a refugee to believe that her or his claim will be heard fairly. It is what assures host states that their generosity will not be exploited. And it is what enables judges to apply the law with confidence, knowing that the system they serve is just and resilient. But integrity is not automatic. It must be built, nurtured, and defended. It requires a robust legal framework, independent judiciary, and fair procedures. It demands vigilance against fraud, trafficking, and exploitation, and it calls for innovation, especially in how we use technology, including artificial intelligence, to support judicial decision making. Africa has been a leader in refugee protection. And I'm very glad and proud to say this while in Kenya, a country that has been generous to millions of refugees over the years, and a country that has courageously adopted the transformative Shirika plan. Broadly on the continent, beyond Kenya, the 1969 OAU Convention expanded the refugee definition to include those fleeing events seriously disturbing public order, a recognition of our continent's unique realities. Today, African judiciaries, with some of your support, continue to shape global jurisprudence, offering insight into how legal systems can adapt to complex mixed movement. This conference is an opportunity to celebrate that contribution, but also to reflect critically. How do we ensure that asylum system remain accessible to those in genuine need while deterring abuse? How do we balance humanitarian considerations with legal rigor? How do we address emerging challenges such as climate-induced displacement and the manipulation of social media evidence? Judges, ladies and gentlemen, are not only interpreters of the law, we also see them as guardians of protection. Your decisions shape lives, protect lives, your reasoning set precedent, your integrity reinforces the credibility of the entire system. This is why this gathering is so important. It's a space for dialogue. In ending, I'm really encouraged and happy to see how the international associations has been looking at the complexities and the realities of the African continent to be reflected in today's World Conference. I commend you for creating spaces to discuss mixed movement, for discussing socio-economic rights of refugees, but also to recognize that refugees contribute to the societies to which they are generously hosted. UNHCR stands with you and remain ready and available to do its part as you carry this important work. Thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful and engaging conference. Thank you very much.
Next to make her remarks, Dr. Stephanie Rothenberger, Director, Rule of Law Program, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, to make her remarks. Why don't we put our hands together and give a warm, warm welcome. And in Kenya we say, Karibu sana.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable Lady Justice Martha Koome, Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Honorable Supreme Court Justice Isaac Lenaola, President of the International Association of Refugee and Migration Judges, the Honorable Justice Nestor Kayobera, Judge President of the East African Court of Justice, distinguished judges, judicial officers, esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is a great pleasure and honor for me as the director of Konrad Adenauer Foundation's Rule of Law program for Sub-Saharan Africa to welcome you as a supporting partner to the 14th World Conference of the International Association of Refugee and Migration Judges here in Nairobi. Konrad Adenauer Foundation, for those of you who are not familiar with us, is a German political foundation committed to strengthening democracy, good governance, social market economy, peace and solidarity around the globe. Our Rule of Law program for Sub-Saharan Africa, based here in Nairobi, which is one of our more than 100 offices worldwide, has been actively promoting the rule of law, constitutionalism, and democracy in the region for nearly 20 years. A core part of our work is close cooperation with judges across the continent in order to strengthen judicial independence and access to justice for citizens, endeavors that go hand in hand with our strong and long-standing commitment to the effective protection and promotion of human rights. And what, if not a conference like this, we should give our support to as a Rule of Law program? Every day, all over the world, people have to make one of the most difficult decisions in their lives: to leave their homes in search of a safer, better place to live. Being forced to flee their homes or even countries, thereby oftentimes risking their lives to join a dramatically increasing global stream of refugees, has become a reality for millions on this planet. This conference, bringing together delegates from 40 countries, stands as a remarkable testament to a shared global commitment to improving refugee and migration systems, as well as the rights and protections afforded to those who depend on them. Our support for this event reflects not only the strategic priorities of our Rule of Law program, particularly concerning the protection of human rights, it is also deeply connected to the fact that Konrad Adenauer Foundation originates from a country that today hosts one of the biggest refugee populations in the world. Germany is home nowadays to 3.4 million people seeking refuge. Ensuring efficient protection for refugees and asylum seekers, anchored in a fundamental right to asylum enshrined in the Constitution of Germany, is regarded as a national priority in my country. It is an obligation shaped by our own history, which saw millions flee the country during the National Socialist dictatorship and the Second World War. The ongoing global displacement crisis and the question of how to best support those who need refuge, and at the same time how to prevent illegal migration for the sake of those who need refuge, remains a central and complex issue on Germany's political agenda. However, the country faces significant challenges in addressing this topic, given the magnitude of asylum requests submitted to its authorities yearly, and our German judge has given an excellent insight in these problems, which I will not repeat now. The integrity of refugee and migration systems is, at its heart, a question of justice. It speaks to the rule of law, to our shared commitment that every individual, regardless of origin, deserves fair and dignified treatment, due process, and access to justice. These principles are universal, and yet their implementation requires sensitivity to context, culture, and capacity. This is where dialogue, such as this week's, becomes so powerful. I'm particularly pleased that this conference is taking place in Africa. The continent's experience, whether in managing mixed migration flows, integrating displaced persons, or strengthening legal frameworks, offer valuable lessons to the global community. In my view, it is of great importance that we address these challenges in a comprehensive and regionally grounded manner. Doing so enhances security and stability in the region, while avoiding the immense burden of long, dangerous, and often deadly journeys for those forced to flee. Journeys that also represent a significant loss of human potential for the African continent. We are proud to collaborate with partners like the International Association of Refugee and Migration Judges, whose vision of a fair and coherent application of refugee and migration law reflects our shared conviction that sustainable solutions must be grounded in justice and universal political goodwill. On behalf of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation's Rule of Law Program for Sub-Saharan Africa, I thank the association for its continued zeal in championing this important cause, the organizers for their dedication, the top leadership, namely Supreme Court Justice Isaac Lenaola, for its steadfast support, and all of you for your commitment to justice and humanity. May the discussions here in Nairobi inspire new partnerships, practical solutions, and a renewed sense of shared purpose. Asanteni sana, thank you.
Next, Your Excellency, allow me to invite the Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, Honorable Justice Martha Koome, who will make her remarks and in turn invite His Excellency the President. A warm round of applause to welcome her, please. Welcome, Madam CJ.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, my colleagues, judges, distinguished jurists, and delegates from across the world, representatives from our development partners and international organizations. May I also recognize the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary and all the members of the judiciary who worked very, very tirelessly, led by the Honorable Justice Lenaola, the President of the Association. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. On behalf of the Judiciary of Kenya, I warmly welcome all our distinguished delegates to Nairobi. I join Justice Lenaola to thank Your Excellency for honoring our invitation to join us this morning despite your very busy schedule as the head of state. In fact, last night I watched the news and saw you in Marsabit, and I was holding my heart with my hands, wondering how you will travel over 700 kilometers to be here this morning. You must be a miracle worker. And for this, we are absolutely grateful. Let me also say the Judiciary of Kenya is honored to co-host this distinguished gathering of judges, jurists from across the globe. We in Kenya are proud to be a member of this vital international community, and we are delighted to provide a platform for the critical discussions that will unfold over the coming days. I hope and invite our distinguished delegates to take this opportunity to extend your stay and sample what our Kenyan hospitality beholds. Beyond this conference, we invite you to visit our tantalizing tourist sites. This 14th World Conference reaffirms our shared determination to confront one of the most urgent humanitarian and legal challenges of our time. With over 120 million people displaced and migration systems worldwide under strain, the role of the judiciaries in upholding fairness, legality, and human rights has never been more critical. But more critical also is the realization that none of us is safe. We are all likely to be these numbers 120 million people. The theme of this 14th IARMJ World Conference, Protecting the Integrity of the Refugee and Migration Systems, underscores a central truth: the safety and dignity of millions who rely on refugee and migration systems, and hope that they will be fair, credible, transparent, and humane. And that is why we are convening here in Nairobi to revisit those challenges that are faced by people seeking refugee protection. The integrity of the refugee and migration systems is also the bedrock upon which the safety, dignity, and rights of millions of people depend. It is about ensuring that our laws and policies are fair, just, and applied consistently. It is also about creating pathways for safe and regular migration while combating the scourges of trafficking and smuggling in persons. It is about upholding the fundamental principle of non-refoulement and ensuring every individual has access to a fair and efficient asylum procedure. Your Excellency, dear colleagues, the theme speaks to a core concern that our asylum and immigration processes must be fair and well managed. And for us, integrity means systems that function as intended to protect those genuinely in need and are not undermined by abuse or politicization. It means systems are in place which can be trusted by the public, that refugees and migrants can approach with confidence, and that those systems are resilient and cannot be manipulated. Fair procedures are the foundation of such integrity. Every asylum claim must receive the impartial hearing with due process, the right to appeal, and access to information and counsel. When people are treated with dignity at our borders, and interviews, either at the border or in the courtrooms, are done properly, this engenders confidence in the system, which is strengthened even when the outcomes are not favorable. Beyond fairness, we must uphold credible and robust systems which require up-to-date laws being aligned with international standards, well-trained personnel, adequate resources, and consistent decision-making. This morning, we were taken through the challenges the 1951 refugee law has encountered and continues to encounter. Therefore, weak systems that are full of loopholes and backlog of cases, or that are inconsistent, give outcomes that make the public lose trust. So we have an obligation as judges to work towards closing those legal gaps, upholding the independence of adjudicators, and ensuring objective decision-making, which is essential in preserving credibility. To protect integrity, we also must address questions of the evidence and the credibility of that evidence. Integrity likewise requires transparency and accountability. And this is so given transparency and accountability reinforces public trust. Governments must correct and share accurate data, must also welcome oversight and communicate clearly about challenges such as camp congestion, pressure on the host communities, or delays in processing. Clear fact-based communication is the strongest defense against what we have called misinformation and xenophobia. Here at home in Kenya, our progressive judicial decisions on citizenship, statelessness, and family unity of refugees exemplify how, even when systems are strained, the rule of law must prevail and the judiciary must remain steadfast for ensuring there is justice, humanity, and accountability. It is these judicial decisions that have given credibility to a protective regime and has offered hope to those who otherwise would have nowhere to go. Such jurisprudence demonstrates that the independence and principled judiciary is indispensable to the refugee protection regime. Courts ensure due process, uphold non-refoulement, scrutinize administrative action, and safeguard the rights of the vulnerable. Your Excellency, brother and sister judges and colleagues, ultimately, integrity in refugee and migration system is a global responsibility. No nation can manage on its own forced displacement. Trafficking or irregular migration is also another problem that cannot be tackled by any nation or any institution alone. Therefore, we continue to need each other, regional and international cooperation. We continue to need judicial dialogue and shared standards, which are absolutely essential. Networks as IARMJ strengthen our collective capacity through jurisprudential exchange and peer support. As judges, we are the custodians of justice and human rights by ensuring that laws are applied fairly, by dismantling discrimination, and by protecting the vulnerable. We will be upholding the very foundations of our stable, humane, and democratic societies. Therefore, judges, you need to remain vigilant, you need to remain courageous, and give the millions of people seeking safety and better future hope. As we begin this conference, let us renew our commitment to justice, compassion, and the principled decision-making. Let us learn from each other and strengthen our systems for the good of all who depend on us. And with those remarks, it is my honor, absolute great honor, to invite you, Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, to deliver our keynote address and your official address to this congregation. Thank you once again for honoring our invitation. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please, let's take our seats. When I say jambo, you respond jambo. 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 Good. That is Kiswahili, and it can help you, when moving around Nairobi. You tell somebody jambo, it means hello. Madam Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court, my friend Judge Isaac Lenaola, distinguished participants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the people of Kenya, I extend a very warm and heartfelt welcome to Your Excellencies, honorable judges, and distinguished delegates. Welcome to Nairobi, a city that reflects the resilience, diversity, and generosity of our nation. And allow me to give you some tips around Nairobi. Nairobi is a great city. On the northern side, you have a whole canopy of very good Karura forest. And on the southern side, you have our national park. As the Madam Chief Justice has said, find time and visit one of these places. At the Nairobi National Park, we have, it is almost 15 minutes from this hotel, so it's right in town. And there you will be able to see wildlife in their natural setting. If you happen to take a morning walk around the city, I need to warn you that sometimes the lions break away from the national park. So when you come across a lion, be careful. It is not, it's wild. It is true, Madam Chief Justice said I was almost 700 kilometers away from this city yesterday. But you all know the anxiety that greets somebody when you are supposed to appear before a judge, let alone judges. And so I had to make effort to appear here today, and especially when you have one of our own, Judge Isaac, as the chair. And I want to say that you couldn't get a better chair. Isaac is, was a Hearts boy, because I was last week in his hometown. I don't know whether I call it hometown or home village. And I can confirm that he understands a few things about migration, because as a pastoralist, there's a lot of migration following livestock and everything in between. So I'm sure lessons from migration of livestock may have filtered into migration of human beings. But I thank the International Association of Refugees and Migration Judges, under the leadership of Isaac Lenaola, for choosing Nairobi to host this 14th World Congress. We gather at a defining moment in human history. The world faces a displacement crisis of unprecedented levels. More than 120 million people have been forced from their homes by conflict, persecution, economic hardship, and environmental disasters. These numbers are not mere statistics. They are a reminder of the urgency and significance of this year's theme, and that is protecting the integrity of refugee and migration systems. This conference calls us to reaffirm our shared responsibility to defend justice, uphold human dignity, and extend compassion. Refugees and migrants are entitled to rights enjoyed by other people. They are individuals whose lives have been disrupted by circumstances beyond their control, yet they carry resilience, they carry hope, and a strong desire to rebuild their lives. Kenya's tradition of hosting refugees is long-standing and distinguished. For more than 3 decades, our nation has opened its doors to those fleeing war, persecution, and sometimes famine. Today, nearly 580,000 refugees and asylum seekers call Kenya home, one of the world's largest refugee population. This reflects not only our generosity, but our unwavering belief in the principles of humanity and solidarity. Our approach has consistently been anchored in international law. Kenya is party to the 1951 UN Refugee Convention, its 1967 protocol, and the 1969 OAU Refugee Convention. In 2021, we enacted the Refugee Act, guaranteeing refugees the right to work, to move freely, and to access services and protecting them from refoulement, as is the case in many other parts of the world. This progressive legal framework reflects our belief that refugees should not live indefinitely in camps, but as active participants in their host societies. Early this year, we launched the Shirika Plan. Shirika meaning cooperation in Kiswahili, and this was spoken to by the representative of the UN. This visionary program seeks to transform refugee camps into integrated settlements, where refugees and host communities can live, work, and prosper together. It is a bold shift from encampment to empowerment. The Shirika Plan aligns with the Global Compact on Refugees and embodies the African Union's commitment to African solutions for African challenges. It promotes self-reliance for refugees and development for host communities as a genuine model for shared progress and sustainable solidarity. Kenya continues to lead in regional diplomacy, recognizing that peace remains the most durable solution for displaced populations. Our efforts in South Sudan, Somalia, and the Horn of Africa, and the Democratic Republic of Congo reflect our belief that regional peace is essential for both regional stability, development, and prosperity. Through frameworks such as the 2017 Nairobi Declaration on Durable Solutions for Somali Refugees, Kenya has advocated for shared responsibility and collective action, including voluntary repatriation where conditions permit, local integration where feasible, and resettlement to those requiring special protection where necessary. Refugee protection is a global obligation, and no single nation can shoulder it alone. If Kenya's open door policy reflects our heart, then the rule of law is the backbone that sustains it. The judiciary plays a decisive role because often a single ruling determines whether a refugee is granted safety or returned to danger. This responsibility requires impartiality, diligence, and a human touch. Judges must ensure that claims are heard fairly and that states uphold their obligations under both domestic and international law. They also play a vital role in harmonizing the interpretation of refugee laws across different jurisdictions. Through cooperation and knowledge sharing, judges can develop a consistent global jurisprudence that ensures fairness no matter where the claim is heard. Justice must not depend on geography or chance. Judicial independence is the bedrock of this system. Where courts are free from political interference, they serve as safeguards against arbitrary action. They ensure that asylum procedures are credible, transparent, and just, and that justice is not only done, but seen to be done. This, in turn, fosters public confidence. Additionally, integrity in refugee and migration systems requires strong institutions and credible procedures. Every asylum seeker deserves timely and fair adjudication, access to legal counsel, and the right to appeal. These are the foundations of justice. Fair procedures build public trust. They ensure that genuine refugees receive protection, while those without valid claims are treated with dignity and returned lawfully. Without fairness, systems lose legitimacy, and they also lose public confidence. Credibility also demands adequate resources, and skilled personnel. Overburdened systems become vulnerable to abuse. Kenya is therefore strengthening the Department of Refugee Services and ensuring documentation, data sharing, and cross-border cooperation to support efficient and consistent decision-making. But as you are all aware, evidence and credibility remain major challenges in refugee adjudication. Claims often lack documentation, and applicants may be traumatized or fearful, making it difficult for them to express themselves clearly or present their cases effectively. This is why training judges in trauma-informed interviewing and ensuring access to reliable country of origin information are essential. Judicial officers must be equipped to assess credibility fairly and consistently. Transparency and accountability are also essential. Governments must publish data, allow independent oversight, and communicate openly with citizens to strengthen public trust and counter misinformation and xenophobia. For those of us from Kenya, we know we have a huge debate going on now on matters public participation, informing the public, carrying the public along. And we have agreed that we are going to have a public participation law that is currently in Parliament. We got an advisory from the Supreme Court on the necessity to have a public participation law that makes sure that there is sufficient input from the public in a manner that is organized, in a manner that is orderly, so that we avoid unnecessary litigation and ensure that we carry the public along and we discharge our responsibilities of the requirements of citizens in a legal, orderly, and effective way. Distinguished delegates, the global displacement landscape is rapidly evolving. Climate change is now one of the most significant drivers of human mobility, with droughts, floods, and desertification uprooting millions across Africa and in many other parts of the world. Those displaced by climate shocks may fall outside traditional legal definitions, yet they remain deeply vulnerable. By 2050, climate change may displace more than 200 million people. Kenya has already seen families crossing borders due to not only conflict, but to hunger and environmental collapse. Our legal frameworks must therefore evolve to provide protection in such cases, whether through broader interpretation of existing law or complementary protection measures, even as we invest in climate resilience to address displacement at its source. Another challenge is the misuse of asylum systems. Some attempt to use asylum as a backdoor to migration, while some states manipulate refugee labels for political expediency. Both undermine integrity. Our response must be balanced by establishing rigorous verification systems to prevent abuse without undermining fairness for genuine applicants. Strengthening documentation, cross-border information sharing, and effective screening procedure is essential. Above all, we must not allow the actions of a few to erode protection for the many. Human trafficking and the smuggling of migrants are transnational crimes that prey on the vulnerability of refugees and undermine state authority over migration. Smugglers and traffickers exploit refugees, often subjecting them to abuse, forced labor, and other forms of exploitation. Kenya has aligned its laws with international standards, strengthened penalties, and enhanced cooperation with regional partners. Yet enforcement must go hand in hand with compassion. Victims of trafficking must not be treated as criminals. Our systems must recognize that trafficked persons may have valid protection claims and ensure that they receive justice and dignity. The digital age brings both promise and peril. Artificial intelligence can help streamline asylum processes, reduce backlogs, and improve access to justice. It can assist judges to rapidly analyze precedents and help asylum seekers understand procedures by translating documents into languages they understand. Yet, artificial intelligence also carries risks, including algorithmic bias and a lack of transparency. Over-reliance on automated systems could undermine fairness. Technology must therefore remain a servant of justice, not its master. Any use of artificial intelligence must be transparent, must be accountable, and subjected to human oversight. Refugee protection is, after all, at its core about human dignity, something no machine can replicate. Excellencies, honorable judges, the integrity of refugee and migration systems have profound implications for the legitimacy of our laws and the protocols designed to protect vulnerable groups such as refugees and migrants. Integrity ensures that the systems protect those in genuine need, resist manipulation, and commands the trust of both refugees and citizens. Without it, we risk the breakdown of asylum systems and the erosion of our shared humanity. Kenya is proud of its contribution in hosting refugees and in developing a very strong legal framework in this field. But we recognize our limits and call on the international community to share responsibility more equitably through financial support, resettlement opportunities, and technical cooperation. Host communities should not bear the burden alone. Solidarity is not charity, it is justice. And therefore, sharing the burden of refugees and asylum seekers and migrants is an act of solidarity and an act of justice, because such persons deserve the support and the assistance of the countries that they end up. As you deliberate on these issues over the next few days, I urge you to continue upholding fairness, courage, and independence in your decisions, and to balance between the aspects of asylum seekers and refugees that require adjudication out of persecution, running away from climate change effects, conflict, and many other areas. But there is a bigger element that is positive about migration. I will give you two examples. Today, as a country, we have signed bilateral labor agreements with many countries, including the last one with Germany and Austria. Last week, I was in Qatar and we were discussing migration, positive, orderly migration that helps share resources and also help build capacity in different parts of the world. As a result of migration, today we have close to 430,000 Kenyans in the last 2 years who are working outside Kenya. It is migration in a positive sense. And as a result of that increase of number of Kenyans working outside Kenya, we got $1 billion more from our diaspora remittances. And we are using it positively to build our country. So there are equally aspects, positive, very positive aspects of migration. This morning, I was having another conversation on migration. This month, we will be launching one of our largest infrastructure projects, dueling 175 kilometers of road from just outside Nairobi to a place called Mau Summit. And among the conversation I was having this morning is how we are going to bring in high-end engineers to work with our Kenyan engineers to build their capacity, because we are undertaking one of the largest projects ever undertaken in Kenya. And we need transfer of knowledge, transfer of technology, and how migration is going to support the transfer of knowledge, transfer of expertise into Kenya. So again, we have areas of very positive migration. And lastly, we made a policy decision as a country to eliminate visa requirements for people coming from our continent, that is in Africa, to facilitate greater movement of people, and with it, ideas, knowledge, expertise. And we are seeing a very positive trajectory on allowing people to move much more freely within our regions. In any case, slowly but surely, as they say, the world is becoming a global village. I sympathize with the people who believe that they can stop migration, because I don't think they will succeed. The thing we need to do is to make it organized, is to make it orderly, and to provide mechanisms like the ones you're discussing here today of how to make it better and how to safeguard the interests of those migrating, of the countries they go to, of the communities they will live in, and make it better. The Shirika plan that we launched a couple of months ago is transforming refugees from being a burden to the communities, to them working with the communities to forge enterprise, to do business together, and to leverage on the expertise and the knowledge and the efforts of the refugees in building the communities that hosts them. So again, there are very positive aspects, so that even as we consider the whole aspect of refugees and migrants, we must be careful not to criminalize the movement of people, because there are very positive elements as well. Let me conclude my remarks by saying, always remember that the decisions you make reverberate beyond the courtroom. They shape lives, preserve families, and safeguard the credibility of the international protection regime. Ladies and gentlemen, I now declare the 14th World Conference of the International Association of Refugee and Migration Judges officially open, and I thank you for your attention.